predictable. I mean, although I have to say, computer viruses. Now there's a bomb. that's one that unfortunately does its job too well and affects everybody, which is not necessarily what we want.
Now, one other aspect that you talk about that we haven't gone into is your paper actually starts off by talking about Spare and his techniques of creating kind of a talismanic object or something like that. It just seems to me kind of like all of these producers are using various chaos magic kind of techniques to I guess create their bombs in the minds of the people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I think they're taking what Spare did of his technology and his ideas and applying them on a larger scale. Certainly. I mean, I think it's great because they're not necessarily self-directed things. I mean, these are directed outward. And yes, one could argue that, well, you shouldn't interfere with the wills of other people. It's, which I would say, yeah, when you find me a world that doesn't do that, then we can talk about it. But when you tell me you went on vacation to Disneyland, you have now affected my will because now I'm thinking about Disneyland. But to go to Spare. The reason I brought up Spare was because, well, Grant Morrison is a chaos magician by name, and by it's clear that he is. So that was why I kind of looked and saw, well, what does Spare do to create these things? I mean, Spare was also an artist. So in the presentation I did, as you remember, I made a PowerPoint presentation of a sigil. Where I started off with determining the magical intention, and I just wrote "criticize Bush," which at the time seemed like a fun thing to do. Still does. Then I, using the technique of eliminating duplicate letters and then arranging the letters into a shape, etc., and then stylizing the shape and such. And so at the end, as you saw, I had this sort of salamander-like thing, which looked like a little cartoon character. And I was doing this because the audience for this is not necessarily an audience who would know what a sigil is anyway. And so I had to kind of do this in the most basic way possible. And it helped, I think, because I couldn't have done the presentation without it. So I'm not a sort of scholar on Spare, so I couldn't really speak for his ideas so much. But the practice is very common nowadays, as you know, and so it's useful.
Okay. Well, I think this has been a fascinating discussion, and it's been great to have you on the show. If somebody has more questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, my email address, it's actually my name at Yahoo. It's Alfred Vitale, ALFRED VITALE, one word, at yahoo.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'd be happy to talk about it with you.
Well, I really enjoyed your presentation when you gave it this last summer.
Yeah.
And this has been a fun conversation. I hope I haven't been too adversarial or anything.
No, you haven't been adversarial enough. I think you're being a little patronizing. No, I'm kidding.
No. Well, sorry about that.
No, it's just it does illustrate though how depending on what you see as the end. And again, because I consider myself Discordian, I just would rather run in circles forever than think there's an answer, because every answer I've found for everything has sucked or has failed or so.
All right. Well, we'll let the listeners kind of go from there and, send us feedback or you email. So thanks again for being on the show. 93.
No problem. Thanks, 93.
So thanks to Alfred for being on the podcast. Also thanks to Monica and Keith 418. I know today's podcast has run a little long, but, being that one hasn't come out for a little over a month, I didn't think that would be that much of a problem. I do want to play one other little musical segment of a little over 30 seconds. This is from a listener named Greg, who's part of Group 362 Dada. He sends me a CD every now and then, and it's got all kinds of various stamps on it and artistic representations of things about Dada, Neo-Dada, Fluxus, and so forth. And I recently had a chance to go to the Getty Museum earlier this month, and I saw an exhibit about Neo-Dada and experimental art movements in post-World War II Japan. And a lot of this kind of stuff was involved in that. So I'm a little more knowledgeable about this subject matter. I already knew about the original Dada and Duchamp and so forth, but I'm getting a little more informed about that. And so what's funny is Greg sends me a CD every now and then, or a postcard, or something else from the how does he put it? The Thelema's Dada wing. So I wanted to play a small segment of his latest CD that he sent me, a song called Harit SB 10. So here's a small segment of that. So thanks for sending that in, Greg. Keep them coming. I love getting the CDs and the other things you send me. And I'm glad I was able to play a little of it this time on the podcast. Again, I don't know when the next one will come out. Hopefully, it certainly will be within the month of April. And if it doesn't come out before the Holy Days, I wish everybody a happy Thelemic Holy Days. And I hope everybody had a great equinox. And the next podcast will be in April, celebrating the 2 years anniversary of the podcast. So do send notes in. And as I said, the closing is Eopan by the Russian OTO. So thanks again for listening to the podcast and putting up with how long it is. Love is the law. Love under will.
Thrill with this song, last of the light. Come carrying out of the night of Come, come, let's Robin is Bacchus with 1,000 parts and leaves and satires for the gods. All the milk waters come, come to me, to me. Come, come with a Apollo in bridal dress. Come, come with Artemis, silk and short and wash thy white, thy beautiful God. In the moon of the woods, on the marble mound, the deep black dawn of the emerald font, deep the purple of passionate prayer, in the crimson shrine, the scarlet snare. Let's all let's start, let's in eyes of blue, to watch thy wondrous swimming through the tangled groove, the glory ball of the living tree that is spirit and song. The morning rain, come, come, oh, the city, Lord God, Lord God, to me, to me, to me, to me. Come, come, with the trumpet sounding shrill. Come, 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 with the drums lamenting. Come, 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 with the flute and come with the pipe. I who wait and wreath and wrestle with legend, almost to nestle my body weary of antique clasp, strong as a lion and sharp as an asp. Thrust the sword through the gilded fat, all day all beget in the side of the open eye, and the tongue can erect and curly thigh, and the want of manners and I am a man tall as the wilt, as a great god can. I am awake in the grip of the snake. The eagle slashes with beak and claw. The god withdraw. The great beast come. Your paw. I am burned to death on the heart of the unicorn. And I met, and I met. And I met, and I met. God of thy flock, I am God, I am God. Flesh to thy bone, flower to thy road. With hooks of steel, I race on the rock. Through source I stumble to equinox. And I read, and I read, and I reap, and I ran, everlasting world without end. Mannequin made and man at man in the mind.